From basketball to volleyball, CPHS 6 covers the sports. Exciting local high school and community sports can only be found on CPHS 6. Home entertainment with a touch of class.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the baseball field here at Port Huron Northern High School. And as can be expected here in Port Huron, in the state of Michigan, what a difference a day makes. Yesterday, a record high of 89 degrees. Right now, as we get set for the start of today's ball game, our temperature is in the vicinity of 45 degrees, and we have a strong north wind blowing as these two teams get ready to play their final game of the year, final regular season game. It will be the final game of the year for the Port Huron High Big Reds. These two teams met once during the regular season, and it was a classic baseball contest as Port Huron High won in 9 innings by a score of 5-4. As we come into today's game, and as you see the officials meeting at home plate, Coach Larry Klink for Port Huron Northern and Coach Dick Hilliker for the Port Huron High Big Reds as they meet and get ready for the game. The Big Reds come into the contest knowing that this is their last game of the year. Their record at this point is 18-4. They won the outright championship for the Red Division of the Macomb Area Conference, but unfortunately Thursday afternoon ran into a red-hot Chippewa Valley Ball Club in a pre-district qualifier, and this is their last game of the season. For the Huskies, they do have at least one more game to go following this as they move on into the state tournament play. As we mentioned, the two teams did meet once during the regular season. Previous to this date, the Big Reds winning 5-4 in 9 innings. As we go into the contest, Port Huron High is 18-4, and Port Huron Northern is 13-7. Northern, of course, is the home team, so Port Huron High will go up to bat first. Pitching for Northern will be Bob Kearns. He takes a record of 5-0 into the contest. On the mound for the Big Reds will be Chris Ward. His record is 4-1. The Port Huron Northern Huskies will take the field, and we're just about set to go here at Port Huron Northern High School. The officials for today's game. The officials behind the plate will be veteran umpire Bob Bulla. On the bases will be Ron Matthews. The voice you hear behind me is that of Jerry Brown introducing the starting lineup for the Port Huron Northern Huskies. First to be introduced is center fielder Brian Hanton. Playing third base is Mike Sly. In right field will be Scott Ayotte. Next to be introduced for Port Huron Northern will be left fielder Ryan Porty. First 2 times these two teams played, Ryan Porty with a career day with a 4 for 4, a double, a home run, 3 RBIs, and he also scored 3 runs. At third base is Bill Ort. Moving on to the mound will be Bob Kearns. Bob with a record of 5-0. During the course of the game, DH Kevin Betts will be in his position in the batting lineup. At first base is Dave Danko wearing number 30. Going behind the plate for the Northern Huskies is Don Duman. And then moving out to second base will be Todd Murphy. Starting lineup, the defensive lineup for Port Huron Northern: Brian Hanton in center field, Mike Sly at third base, Scott Ayotte in right field, Ryan Porty in left, Bill Ort at third base. It'll be Bob Kearns on the mounds, David Danko at first base, Don Duman behind the plate, and Todd Murphy at second base. And if we can flip the piece of paper over, we'll give you the batting lineup for the Port Huron High Big Reds. Leading off will be Marlon Ashford, the center fielder. He'll be followed by right fielder Jim McIntyre. And third in the lineup for today's game will be left fielder Aaron Carpenter. Rounding out the starting lineup and the batting order for the Port Huron High Big Reds, catching will be Ryan Mullins. Scott Duckworth will be at third base. Shortstop A.J. Wetzel. Second base will be David Schultz. Joe Gilbert, the first baseman. And pitching with a record of 4-1 is Chris Ward. So we're getting all set for the start of today's game. Marlon Ashford leading it off for the Port Huron High Big Reds. Bob Kearns on the mound for the Huskies. And despite the weather conditions, we do have a number of fans who come out for this ball game this afternoon. Everyone with blankets, I might add.
Leading off on deck, Big Mac McIntyre. In the hole, Ted Carpenter.
So pitcher Bob Kearns will complete his warm-up tosses now. Catcher Newman throws it down to second, and stepping into the batter's box for Port Huron High will be number 7, Marlon Ashford. First time around against Port Huron Northern, Marlon was 0 for 3, but did score 1 run in that contest. Again, as we go into the game, Port Huron High with a record of 18-4, and Port Huron Northern 13-7. First time around, 5-4 ball game. PH winning in 9 innings. So we're just about set for the first pitch. Kearns looks in. Ashford steps in. First pitch. Strike one. Swinging strike. 0-1 to count. Called strike. Bob Bola, the umpire behind the plate, counts 0-2 on the leadoff batter for Port Huron High, Marlon Ashford. Long fly ball to right field. He's out. First out of the game.
Right fielder, number 9, Big Mac McIntyre, the hitter.
Setting into the batter's box now for the Port Huron High Big Reds, number 9, playing right field today, Jim McIntyre.
The Iron Man in the hole.
Jim has played some shortstop and right field both for the Big Reds in the right field spot today. First pitch from Kearns, swinging strike. We're just underway here at Port Huron Northern High School. Jim McIntyre had a good game first time around against the Huskies. He was 2 for 4, scoring 3 runs. Of his 2 hits, 1 was a double. Foul ball. And once again, Northern pitcher Bob Kearns quickly out in front with a 0-2 count. At this point, he's thrown 4 pitches and all 4, or 5 pitches, and all 5 have been strikes. Top of the first inning, no score, second batter of the ball game. Pitch on its way. Looked like a curve on the inside, and McIntyre goes down swinging, or goes down to the called third strike. Aaron Carpenter steps in now, wearing number 17. Aaron, a left-handed batter, playing left field. Last time out against the Huskies, Aaron was 2 for 4 with 4 RBIs and scored a run. So he was involved in all the runs in that contest that day. This is the first ball thrown by Kearns thus far in the ball game. 1-0 the count, 2 outs, top of the first. Call strike. 1-1. Aaron Carpenter the batter. Ryan Mullins on deck for the Port Huron High Big Reds. Bob Kearns on the mound, looks in. Outside and high. 2 balls, 1 strike. Swing and a miss. 2-2. Bunch of 2s up on the scoreboard now. 2 balls, 2 strikes, 2 outs. Top of the first inning. Pitch from Kearns. Foul ball. Aaron got just a piece of it. Thank you for joining us here on Channel 6, Port Huron High and Port Huron Northern in the final regular season contest for both clubs. Pitch on the way. Outside. Full count now. Like Kearns let up a little bit. Just missing on the outside. They said Carpenter went around, and so second strikeout of the inning for Bob Kearns. We've completed 1/2 inning of play for Port Huron High. No runs, no hits, no errors, nobody left on base. Port Huron Northern coming to bat. Let's check the batting lineup for the Huskies. As the Big Reds move out on the field to their defensive positions, leading off for the Huskies will be the center fielder Brian Hanton. He'll be followed by third baseman Mike Sly, and third in this top of the first or bottom of the first inning will be the right fielder Scott Ayotte. Completing the batting lineup for Port Huron Northern, in left field will be Ryan Porty. Batting fifth will be the third baseman Bill Ort. The DH, Kevin Betts, followed by first baseman David Danko, catcher Don Duman, and then Todd Murphy. Pitching for the Port Huron High Big Reds wearing number 22 is Chris Ward. Chris did start last time around against Port Huron Northern. Chris went 4 2/3 innings, allowing 9 hits. He did strike out 2, allowed 4 runs. The victory in that contest last time around went to Scott Duckworth, who came on in relief. But Chris Ward did pitch last time around and started for Port Huron High.
On the mound for the
As we said, Brian Hanton will lead it off for Port Huron Northern. Brian wearing number 44.
behind the mask, the Iron Man.
Brian went 2 for 5 last time around when these two clubs met.
Leading off for the
As a matter of fact, the very first pitch of the game stroked for a base hit to right field last time around. Big Reds going quietly in the top of the first inning. Bob Kearns registering 2 strikeouts, 3 up and 3 down. So in the bottom of the first, no score. And it is cold out here this afternoon. I think I'm going to have to see if I can find a pair of batting gloves that somebody's not using right now. Chris Ward completing his warm-up tosses. Ball down to second. And Brian Hanton will step into the batter's box for the Port Huron Northern Huskies. Northern coming up with a big victory the other day over Sterling Heights. That actually helped out Port Huron High. Port Huron High, with their victory on Wednesday of this week, had clinched at least a tie for the title in the Red Division of the Macomb Area Conference. But with Port Huron Northern downing Sterling Heights 7-4, that gave the championship outright to the Big Reds. Brian Hanton leads off for the Northern Huskies. First pitch from Chris Ward is in the dirt, all the way back to the backstop, and it's a 1-0 count. Chris Ward looks in. Ball is low, 2-0 is the count. Two no's the count on Brian Hanton. Next pitch, inside and low, 3-0. We're in the bottom of the first inning, no score. Brian Hanton, the first batter for the Northern Huskies. Called strike. 3-1's the count. We'll set up the Big Reds for you defensively here in just a moment. Chris Ward. Foul ball. Count is 3-2. Ryan Mullins behind the plate. Joe Gilbert's at first. Dave Schultz at second. A.J. Wetzel at short. Scott Duckworth at third. The outfield, Carpenter, Ashford, and McIntyre going from left to right. Chris Ward, full count. Pitch. Low and outside, so Brian Hanton draws a walk.
21, the Iceman, the hitter, lightning on deck. Prime time at the hole.
Wearing number 21, coming to the plate, looking down at Coach Larry Klink, is Mike Sly. Mike batting left-handed. Checking again with Coach Larry Klink to see if perhaps the bunt sign is on. Runner takes off. Throw down to second. Brian Hanton steals. Pitch is called a strike, so it's 0-1 on Mike Sly. So Port Huron Northern with the man in scoring position early here in the first inning. Brian Hanton down to second, stealing second after the walk. Pitch is up high. 1-1's the count. Ball was low. Odd situation, I guess I didn't pick up on it. Mike Sly started this at bat left-handed and then switched around to the right side. He's now batting right. Scott Ayotte is on deck for the Northern Huskies. Count is 2-1. Chris Ward trying to check the runner back, comes to the plate, up high. And makes the count 3-1 now. Three and one. Man on second for Northern is Brian Hanton. Pitch. Catching the outside corner for Chris Ward. Full count now. Should mention that Mike was 1 for 5 first time around against Port Huron High. Grounder to Wetzel. He comes up, throw to first. Out at first. Nice play by Joe Gilbert, but Brian Hanton moves on over to third. So mark it down, 6-3, first out. And coming up now is the right fielder, Scott Ayotte. Brian Hanton moves over to third. On deck for the Huskies, Ryan Porty, the left fielder. We're in the home half of the first inning, no score. Port Huron High went out 1-2-3. Pitch, out of play. So Chris Ward quickly ahead of Scott Ayotte with 1 strike. Chris Ward delivers again out of play, and quickly Chris Ward out in front of Scott Ayotte, 0-2. Ayotte, first time around against Port Huron High, went 0 for 5. Pitch down in the dirt. Ryan Mullen stops from going, getting behind him. Count 1-2. Brian Hanton on third for the Northern Huskies. Pitch down the line. Gets by Gilbert. Run will score. And quickly Port Huron Northern has jumped out to a 1-0 lead. Scott Ayat with an infield single. Got the run in from third, and Port Huron Northern leads in the contest 1-0. Coming up now for the Northern Huskies is Ryan Porty. We mentioned early on, Ryan had a great day first time around, going 4 for 4, including a double, home run, scored 3 runs, and had 3 RBIs. The first time around, he was responsible for all the scoring for Port Huron Northern, while Aaron Carpenter was responsible for all the scoring for Port Huron High. Pitch down low. 1-0. That's Scott Ayat at first. It's got an RBI, by the way, for that for getting Hanton in from third. 1-0 Northern, the bottom of the first. Chris Ward steps off. Throw over to first. Runner takes off, throw it down to second. Well, they called him safe. The umpire, Ron Matthews, saying that he got him too high up on the leg. It looked like perhaps the ball was down there in time, but another stolen base for Port Huron Northern. So Scott Ayat now is down at second base. We've got 1 out. And the Huskies with another player in scoring position. 1 ball, 1 strike on Porty. 1 out here in the bottom of the first. Pitch right. Wetzel has trouble controlling, can't come up with it. So Ryan Porty is going to be safe at first. Ayat moves over to third.
Enforcer, fourth hitter. Steady on deck, danger in the hole.
Stepping in now for Northern is Bill Ort, the third baseman. Northern has 1 run in, still 2 men on base with just 1 out. Ayat's at third, Porty's at first. Chris Ward with just a token toss over to first. 1 out on the bottom of the first inning. Ball down low. 1-0 is the count. Call strike. Bob Buller, the umpire behind the plate. 1-1's the countdown. Scott Ayat on third, Ryan Porty on first, Bill Ort the batter. 1-1 the count. Chris Ward on the mound for Port Huron High. Again, a toss over to first. Comes the pitch, fouled away. Porty was off with the pitch. 1 ball, 2 strike. 1 out here in the bottom of the first. Pitch to Ort outside. That evens the count up at 2-2. Ward pitches, foul ball. Head off the mask of Port Huron catcher Ryan Mullins. So the count remains at 2-2. Northern with 2 men on. Scott Ayod down at third, Ryan Porty down at first. And if possible, the wind is blowing a little bit stronger. Chris Ward fakes towards third, looks back towards first. Northern has 1 run in. Brian Hanton walked to open this inning. Stole second, moved over to third on an infield out. Bill Hort going for a high pitch, and he strikes out.
The designated hitter number 41, Betty Betts.
Kevin Betts, the designated hitter, now stepping into the lineup for Port Huron Northern. As we mentioned, Northern with 1 run in. Brian Hanton walked. He stole second, went to third on an infield out, and then did score on a infield hit by Scott Ayod. So Northern leads 1-0. There's 2 out now. Huskies with 2 men on. Porty takes off for second. Throw down. It's not in time, and so the Port Huron Northern has stolen their third base here in the first inning. Kevin Betts on the mound, or Kevin Betts at the plate. Strike 1 is the count. Chris Ward is pitching for Port Huron High. Second pitch on the outside, strike 2. Chris Ward looks in, the pitch, hit towards short. Wetzel has a little trouble controlling, long throw to first, not in time. So Scott Ayod comes across the plate, and Northern picks up their second run of the day. And Kevin Betts is going to be safe on the air. And that'll bring up first baseman David Danko.
Number 30, Danger Danko, the hitter. Thunder on deck. Irish in the hole.
There's 2 outs. Northern still with 2 men on. They've got men at first and third and 2 runs in. First baseman David Danko at the plate. First pitch is going to be foul, out of play. Down the right field line. Danko, first time around against Port Huron High over at Port Huron High School, was 1 for 4 with a couple of RBIs. Chris Ward looking in, the pitch in the dirt, gets away from Mullins, and the run is going to score. Porty comes in. No, they call him out at the plate. Chris Ward doing a nice job to get up there and get the throw from Ryan Mullins. So the Big Reds get out of the inning, allowing 2 runs. So we played 1 inning. At the end of 1 inning of play, the score is Port Huron Northern 2 and Port Huron High 0. The Big Reds are coming to the bat, and we'll be right back. As we come back to Port Huron Northern High School, we've completed 1 inning of play, and Port Huron Northern coming up with 2 runs in the bottom of the first, and the host Huskies lead in the contest 2-0. Ryan Mullins will lead off for Port Huron High School. Ryan, first time around against Port Huron Northern, was 1 for 2. He walked 3 times, scored 1 run, and had 1 RBI. Port Huron Northern coming up with 2 runs in the first inning. Port Huron High went up and out, 1, 2, 3. Bob Kearns on the mound for Northern. His record 5-0 going into today's contest on a cold Friday afternoon at the north end of town. First pitch is a strike, called by umpire Bob Bola.
Yes, we can make it there, Mr. Burnell.
Pitch out towards shortstop, up firing, out. Out at first, Ryan Mullins goes down trying to stretch to beat the throw, but he's out. Stepping in now for Port Huron High, wearing number 14, the third baseman, Scott Duckworth. A.J. Wetzel on deck for the Big Reds. First pitch up high to Duckworth. Scott had a good day against Northern first time around, going 2 for 5, scoring 1 run and 1 RBI. Second pitch up high to Duckworth, 2-0's the count. Bob Kearns pitches down low, 3-0. Bob started out the first inning. The first 6 pitches were all strikes. Having a little trouble here pitching to Duckworth. Count is 3-0. Pitch up high, and Scott Duckworth, the first runner for Port Huron High, he walks.
The shortstop, number 10, Elf. Wetzel, the hitter. Fifty on deck.
Up next for Port Huron High, wearing number 10, the shortstop, A.J. Wetzel. Catcher Don Duman with little repairs. And we're set to go again. Bob Kearns on the mound for Northern. Scott Duckworth, the first runner for the Big Reds. He walks. He's down at first. Wetzel looks at the first pitch, squares around as if to bunt. It's called strike.
Left-handed Marty is the pitcher for the Huskies. He's over at Grand Rapids Junior College throwing a little ball this year. Marty had.
Kearns delivers. Ball's fouled out of play. And Kearns is quickly out in front of Wetzel, 0-2. We're in the top of the second inning. Northern scored 2 in the bottom of the first. They lead in this contest 2-0. This is the final regular season game for both ball clubs. This is the final game of the year for Port Huron High. Northern will move on into state play. Pitch towards short. Has a little trouble with it. Throw to first. No, he hangs on to it. Sly had a little trouble coming in with a handle on it. Couldn't make the throw to first, so the Big Reds now have a bit of a rally going. Stepping in now is second baseman David Schultz.
The second baseman, number 5, Schultz, the hitter. Big Joe Gilbert on deck. Chris Ward in the hole.
Dave Schultz, wearing number 5, second baseman for Port Huron. Big Reds trying to get back in the ballgame. They trail by 2-0. A walk and an error, and they have got 2 men on. There's 1 out here in the top of the second inning. Bob Kearns, pitch up high. One another count on Dave Schultz. Next pitch up high as well. 2-0 the count now. Pitch from Kearns. Called strike. That's Bob Bola, the umpire behind the plate. Ron Matthews is the umpire out on the field. Two and 1 to count. There's 1 out. Port Huron with 2 men on. Infield fly. And the ball drops. They've called the infield fly rule. The batter was automatically out. Bill Hort had trouble with it. The wind is raising havoc with any ball that goes up in the air. But David Schultz out in the infield fly rule, which is one of the most misunderstood rules. The runners go at their own risk wisely. They had started to take off when they saw that the ball hit the ground, but realized that it was the infield fly that was called and went back to their bases. So Schultz is out. Runners still at first and second. That's Duckworth down at second. And Wetzel at first. And first baseman Joe Gilbert steps up now for Port Huron High. Bob Kearns the pitcher. Pitch low and inside. Ball one. We're in the top of the second. Northern leading in the contest 2-0. Kearns checks the runner back at second. Pitch up high. And quickly he's behind to Joe Gilbert. Joe, the first baseman for Port Huron High. 2-0 the count. 2 outs, 2 men on. And we're in the second inning. Pitch to Gilbert. On the inside corners, strike one. 2-1. Pitch from Kearns. Down low. Nice play by Dillman to stop it from getting away. 3-1 the count now. Two men on for Port Huron High. The count 3-1. There's 2 outs. Joe Gilbert with a chance to get the Big Reds back in the ballgame now. The hit out to right field. Coming up with a nice play is Scott Ayotte. Well, Joe Gilbert hit the ball pretty good, but Scott Ayotte coming up with a big play for the Huskies. And Port Huron Northern gets out of it without allowing any runs. We've completed an inning and a half. We're going to the bottom of the second now, with Northern leading in the contest 2-0. We'll flip the page over and take a look at who's coming up for Port Huron Northern. David Danko will lead off for the Huskies. He was up there when Ryan Porty was cut down at the plate. So Danko will be back up there, followed by Don Duman, and then Todd Murphy. 7th, 8th, and 9th batters for Port Huron Northern. We're getting a little bit of rain now as we continue here at Port Huron Northern High School. So not only is it cold and windy, it's a little bit wet as well. So at the top of the first, the Big Reds threatened. They did get a couple of men on, but a nice play by Scott Ayotte in right field thwarts the rally. And Port Huron Northern continues to lead in the contest 2-0. If you've just joined us, as we mentioned, this is the last regular season game, last game of the year for Port Huron High. They lost in a pre-district qualifier on Thursday, May 16th, losing to Chippewa Valley in 8 innings. With that, their chances of moving on to state tournament play were thwarted. Port Huron Northern at this time looking ahead to still playing in the state tournament. So first baseman Dave Danko will step in. He was at the plate when the ball got away from Port Huron High catcher Ryan Mullins, who quickly got the ball and threw it to pitcher Chris Ward, and then tagged out Ryan Porty. So Danko is batting again. First pitch from Chris Ward is a strike. Danko was 1 for 4 with a couple of RBIs. First time around, foul ball down first base side. And Chris Ward quickly out in front of Danko, 0-2. Pitch from Ward, down low, 1-2. Somewhere along the way, we'll see if we can get a shot of the people in the stands, the brave people that have come out here, in addition to us, all bundled up. And I'm getting my own bundling right now. Aaron Carpenter's mom taking care of me, making sure that I'm covered up and warm. I don't know if it's going to work. Right out in front, Chris Ward coming up with it, throw to first. He's out. So Dave Danko is out. Pitcher to first. And that'll bring up Don Duman. Duman, first time around out at Port Huron High School, was 0 for 4. We're in the bottom of the second inning. Port Huron Northern coming up with 2 runs in their half of the first. They lead 2-0. And the first pitch from Ward to Duman is a called strike. Pitch down low, Duman went for it. Ryan Mullen still hasn't found it. There it is down the first baseline.
Eric Klink, does it come up to the press box, please? Eric Klink.
So 2 strikes on Duman. Ward pitch. Struck him out. And throw down to first, completes the strikeout. Ryan Mullins had trouble controlling the ball. And it's a strikeout for Chris Ward.
The second baseman.
So it's 2 up and 2 down for Northern as second baseman Todd Murphy steps in now. Brian Hanton on deck for the Northern Huskies. Bottom of the second inning, 2 outs. Northern leads 2-0. Murphy was 1 for 5 the first time these 2 clubs met. First pitch, he slams down the first baseline foul. The pitch. It's called a ball by umpire Bob Bola. The count 1-1. Ward delivers. Looked like a slow curve. Umpire Bob Bola says it caught the inside corner. Count is 1-2. So Ward out in front of Murphy. The pitch struck him out. And we've completed 2 innings of play here at Port Huron Northern High School. Our score, the host Huskies 2, the visiting Port Huron High Big Reds 0. We'll be back with the top of the third inning after we take this time out.